Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why it's so hard to get out of bed at 6 a.m. to do something productive? Or why, even with a completely free day ahead, you somehow find yourself endlessly scrolling through social media, unable to focus on anything? If you've ever felt like this, it's easy to fall into the trap of labeling yourself as lazy. But let me tell you a secret. You're not lazy. The truth is, procrastination has nothing to do with laziness. In reality, it has everything to do with your brain being bombarded by constant digital stimuli, making any normal task seem boring and uninteresting in comparison. And no, it's not your fault. Without even realizing it, your brain has been trained to chase instant gratification. The kind of quick dopamine hit you get from scrolling through Instagram, checking notifications, or binge-watching short videos. The problem? This cycle of instant pleasure weakens your focus and makes simple tasks feel 10 times harder than they should be. So before you judge yourself for lacking discipline, understand this. The solution isn't to force focus. It's to understand how the procrastinating mind actually works. And I'm going to walk you through it step by step so you can break this cycle and finally start taking action. The path to productivity and balance isn't about trying to avoid procrastination at all costs. It's about learning how it's formed and discovering how to dismantle it from the inside out. Ready to start the journey toward mastering your mind and your life? Procrastination isn't laziness. It's a symptom of an overloaded brain. The modern world is constantly bombarding your mind with notifications, short videos, endless feeds, training your brain to crave instant gratification. So when it's time to do something that requires real effort, like studying or working, your mind is already conditioned to avoid anything that doesn't provide immediate pleasure. It's not about a lack of willpower. It's a vicious cycle where focus dissolves before it even begins. Picture this. Someone needs to finish a project but decides to take a quick peek at social media first. An hour later, they realize they haven't done a thing, and now they're feeling guilty. That frustration pushes them toward more distractions to numb the discomfort, reinforcing the procrastination loop even further. The more your brain gets used to fast, shallow stimuli, the harder it becomes to sit down and focus on tasks that demand patience and depth. Balance disappears. Productivity collapses. Breaking this cycle doesn't happen through brute force discipline. It happens through small, strategic shifts. Creating barriers to distractions, like disabling notifications or using app blockers, already reduces the chance of slipping into autopilot. Another powerful tactic is to implement controlled rewards. 30 minutes of deep work, followed by 5 minutes of guilt-free rest. This rewires the brain to associate effort with healthy pleasure. But to really understand what's going on behind the scenes, we need to take a closer look at one of the invisible villains driving this whole dynamic: dopamine. Dopamine is the engine of motivation. Most people associate it with pleasure, but its true role runs much deeper. This neurotransmitter is what drives action. It's what gets you out of bed with energy and a sense of purpose. The problem arises when the brain becomes too accustomed to getting dopamine the easy way, through social media, video games, junk food. The result? More complex activities like studying or working feel dull, pointless, and almost unbearable. Willpower fades, and frustration kicks in. Ever noticed how basic tasks, like reading a book or writing a report, can feel impossible after spending hours scrolling through short videos? That's because your brain has been trained to crave instant gratification, and it starts rejecting anything that doesn't provide a quick hit. It's like trying to run a marathon after months of doing no training. The dopamine system becomes overstimulated and exhausted, so tasks that once felt fulfilling now seem overwhelming. Focus disappears. Procrastination takes over. The key is to retrain your brain to seek dopamine from the right sources. Small shifts can make a huge difference, like limiting screen time, exercising regularly, and replacing cheap dopamine hits with long-term, meaningful challenges. The goal isn't to cut everything cold turkey, but to build new habits that restore balance. And here's the deeper insight. The brain regulates dopamine through a compensation mechanism. For every pleasure spike, there's a corresponding dip, pain, boredom, or withdrawal. That's why it makes perfect sense to understand the delicate balance between pleasure and pain if you want to regain control over your focus, motivation, and energy. Ready to dive into how that balance really works and how you can hack it to your advantage? The brain operates like a balance between pleasure and pain. When you consume too much dopamine from easy sources like social media, sugar, or binge-watching shows, that balance gets disrupted. The problem? Momentary pleasure always comes at a cost. After a dopamine spike, the brain compensates with a dip, feelings of apathy, fatigue, and lack of motivation. In other words, the more you chase instant gratification, the more likely you are to feel bored and drained afterward. That's why, after hours on your phone, the idea of doing something productive feels almost impossible. Ever noticed how eating something sweet gives you a quick high, followed by a crash and the urge to eat more? The same pattern applies to any quick dopamine source. At first, it feels great, but as the brain adapts, it starts needing bigger doses to feel the same effect. And that's when activities like reading a book or learning a new skill start to feel flat and uninteresting by comparison. The balance collapses and procrastination becomes a default habit. To restore this balance, you need to regulate the source of your dopamine. That means cutting down on overstimulation and retraining your brain to find pleasure in effort-based rewards. Things like physical exercise, deep learning, and creative work may feel hard at first, but they bring long-lasting satisfaction and a deeper sense of accomplishment over time. The key is to design an environment that supports this shift, to rebuild a lifestyle where the brain relearns how to value delayed gratification over instant hits. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. How to create a structure that rewires your brain for focus, motivation, and sustainable success. To regain balance, you need to reverse the logic of easy pleasure and introduce challenge before reward. This means training your brain to value effort, instead of constantly chasing instant gratification. Physical exercise is a perfect example. It demands energy up front, but afterward, it releases dopamine in a healthier, more sustainable way, boosting both your mood and mental clarity. The same goes for studying, reading, or building personal projects. Daily mini challenges rebuild your willpower and help recover your lost focus. The secret? Progressive adaptation. If someone is used to waking up and checking their phone immediately, they can start by swapping that habit for just 5 minutes of stretching or deep breathing. If studying feels like torture, how about starting with just 10 focused minutes a day before allowing any leisure time? The goal isn't to eliminate pleasure, but to recondition the mind to enjoy it without becoming a slave to it. Small changes create a ripple effect that transforms your entire routine. This isn't about cutting off all sources of pleasure. It's about learning to use them intentionally. Create before you consume. Move before you relax. Learn before you entertain. Over time, your brain starts linking effort with real satisfaction, instead of just associating it with resistance or escape. But here's the catch. None of this works if what you're consuming daily continues to sabotage your progress. And that's exactly why the next step is learning how to take control over what enters your mind. The mind is like fertile soil. What you plant grows. The problem is that in the digital age, algorithms are doing the planting for you, flooding your mind with content that hijacks your focus and feeds your procrastination. If your consumption is passive and unfiltered, your mental balance quickly collapses. The solution? Flip the game. Start consciously choosing what enters your mind, because the right information can become a springboard for growth, while the wrong one only deepens distraction. Ever opened your phone to do something productive, only to find yourself an hour later lost in an endless feed? That's not random. These platforms are designed to keep you hooked, releasing effortless dopamine hits that leave you feeling drained rather than fulfilled. The way out? Set limits. For example, start replacing a portion of your social media time with content that actually adds value, like books, documentaries, or online courses. Choosing what to consume is the first step to reclaiming your time, your energy, and your mind. The goal isn't to eliminate entertainment, but to use it intelligently. A thought-provoking podcast can easily replace mindless scrolling. Stimulating reads, like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, or Steal, like an Artist by Austin Kleon, can reprogram your mindset and reawaken your creative fire. The point is simple. If you don't filter what you consume, you'll be shaped by someone else's agenda. But here's the truth. Real transformation requires more than just switching content. It requires building the strength, mentally and physically, to sustain that change. And that's where we go next. How to forge the inner resilience needed to not just start your transformation, but follow through. The body and mind are deeply connected. When your physical energy is low, staying focused becomes nearly impossible. That's why exercise goes far beyond aesthetics. It's a powerful tool to regulate dopamine, reduce anxiety, and strengthen willpower. Movement triggers a balanced release of neurotransmitters, sharpening concentration and making it easier to resist procrastination. Anyone who's gone on a morning walk knows how it can clear your mind and set a different tone for the entire day. And here's the best part. It doesn't have to be extreme. Many people give up because they believe they need to spend hours at the gym. But the truth is, even small bursts of movement can make a big difference. Something as simple as stretching when you wake up, doing 10 minutes of jumping jacks, or taking the stairs instead of the elevator already helps rewire the brain out of inertia. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Those who build this habit soon notice improvements not only in focus, but in overall energy and emotional balance. The secret is making it part of your routine without relying on motivation. Activities like strength training, running, or yoga don't just strengthen the body. They build discipline, which is essential for any real transformation. And here's what's fascinating. Over time, your brain starts craving the effort itself because it associates physical activity with genuine pleasure and internal reward. But for all of this to work, something deeper needs to shift. You have to adopt a new perspective on personal growth. One that changes how you face challenges, how you learn, and how you define success. Because real change doesn't start with information. It starts with how you respond to resistance. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Many people cling to the idea that certain skills are innate gifts. I'm not good with numbers. I've never been creative. I just don't have discipline. How many times have you heard or told yourself something like this? The problem with this fixed mindset is that it shuts down growth. But there's one word powerful enough to flip that belief on its head. Yet. Saying, I'm not disciplined yet, opens the door to learning. Everything can be developed with practice and persistence. Once we drop the illusion that talent beats effort. Science backs this up. The concept of a growth mindset, researched by psychologist Carol Dweck, shows that the brain is highly adaptable. People who believe they can develop new skills are more likely to put in the effort, and as a result, they actually get better. Someone who says, I'm not good at public speaking, has already slammed the door on progress. But the moment they add, yet, their perspective shifts. That small change creates a motivation loop where each little win builds momentum and balances challenge with reward. So what does this mean in practice? It means anyone can train their mind to overcome procrastination and build the focus needed to reach their goals. If learning something new feels overwhelming, break it down. If writing a book seems impossible, start with a single paragraph a day. If reading has never been your thing, try 5 pages before bed. The key is to swap discouragement for the mindset of not yet. But knowing this isn't enough. You have to act. Because real transformation doesn't happen when you understand, it happens when you apply. Now that you understand how your mind works, the real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you stay trapped in the cycle of procrastination, or will you use this insight to reshape your routine? The path forward isn't easy, but it doesn't have to be a burden either. Small daily adjustments can completely transform your relationship with focus, balance, and willpower. In the end, it's not about eliminating distractions overnight. It's about learning to control them before they control you. Just imagine what your life could look like if you had full command over your attention. If you could wake up feeling energized, stay focused on what matters, and feel genuinely motivated to grow. That version of your life is within reach, but only if you choose to take the first step. So, what's the first change you're going to implement today? Start small, but start. Curate what you consume. Move your body. Embrace the power of yet. Challenge your mind instead of numbing it. Because your evolution depends on your action. And this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter where you reclaim control.